The moon hung low in the inky sky, casting feeble shadows upon the desolate highway. John gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white against the darkness that enveloped him. He'd always been uneasy about driving at night, but tonight was different. He had been on this stretch of road countless times before, but tonight it felt unfamiliar, as though the very asphalt beneath his tires had morphed into something sinister. The only company he had was the eerie hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of his radio, which emitted static instead of music. Miles passed by in silence until he noticed a dimly lit gas station up ahead. It appeared to be the only sign of life in this desolate landscape. John pulled into the station, the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows across the cracked pavement. As he stepped out of the car, a shiver ran down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced around, but the station appeared empty. The unsettling feeling gnawed at him as he approached the gas pump. Just as he inserted his credit card, a raspy voice whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Startled, John turned around, but there was no one in sight. He scanned the area, his heart pounding in his chest. The gas pump clicked to life, and the numbers on the display spun faster than he'd ever seen, racking up an absurd bill. Panicking, John yanked the nozzle from his car and jumped back into the driver's seat. He sped away from the gas station, the unsettling encounter fueling his unease. The road ahead seemed to stretch on forever, winding through a dense forest. Shadows danced on the edges of his headlights, and the trees loomed like silent sentinels. John's mind played tricks on him, conjuring images of twisted, gnarled branches reaching out to grab him. He switched on the radio, desperate for distraction, but it only added to his anxiety. A news report spoke of a series of unsolved disappearances in the area, with witnesses claiming to have seen strange, ghostly figures on the roadside at night. John's heart raced as he scanned the darkness for any sign of movement. Then, just as he was about to dismiss it as paranoia, he saw them. Figures, pale and indistinct, standing at the edge of the road. They seemed to be watching him, their eyes glinting with an otherworldly glow. His foot slammed on the brakes and his car screeched to a halt. The figures remained just out of reach of his headlights. The night was thick with darkness as Mark navigated his way through the winding, desolate road. The only source of illumination came from his car's headlights, casting eerie shadows that danced along the edges of the forest. He'd always enjoyed the solitude of late-night drives, finding solace in the empty roads that stretched into the unknown. Tonight, however, something felt different. A sense of unease had settled in his gut, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The forest seemed to close in around him, the trees leaning in closer with each passing mile. As Mark continued down the road, he noticed a faint flickering light in the distance. It was the old, abandoned Everwood Mansion, a place known for its chilling tales of hauntings and mysterious disappearances. He'd heard stories about it from the locals, but he'd never paid much attention to them. Tonight, though, curiosity got the better of him. He pulled up to the decrepit mansion, the tires of his car crunching on the gravel driveway. The place had an eerie, foreboding presence, and even the moonlight seemed hesitant to touch its decaying facade. Mark grabbed his flashlight and decided to explore. The moment he stepped out of the car, a bone-chilling breeze swept through the air, sending shivers down his spine. His flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing cracked windows and rotting wood. As he entered the mansion, the creaking floorboards echoed with every step, as if the house itself were groaning in agony. Mark descended into the basement, where he'd discovered an old, rusted Earendor partily hidden beneath a tattered rug. The door bore straying symbols and markings, and curiosity once again overcame his fear. He pulled on the door's handle, and it swung open with an eerie creak, revealing a narrow, descending staircase. Descending into the depths of the mansion, Mark's flashlight revealed a network of underground tunnels. The air grew colder, and strange whispers seemed to echo from the shadows. He pressed on, feeling a growing sense of dread with each step. In the heart of the underground labyrinth, Mark stumbled upon a dimly lit chamber. In the center stood a grotesque statue, half human, half monster, its eyes seemingly following him. An ancient, leather-bound book lay at its base. It was adorned with more cryptic symbols. Unable to resist, Mark opened the book and began to read. The words seemed to come to life, recounting the dark history of the... As the clock struck midnight, John found himself on an eerily desolate stretch of highway. The road ahead stretched into darkness, the faint glow of his car's headlights barely penetrating the abyss. A shiver ran down his spine, but he pressed on, determined to reach his destination. The night was moonless, and the stars seemed distant, hidden behind an inky curtain of clouds. John's radio emitted only static, leaving him with his thoughts and the rhythmic hum of his tires against the pavement. Suddenly, he noticed a pair of headlights in his rearview mirror gaining on him quickly. The vehicle approached at an alarming speed, its high beams blinding in the darkness. John's heart raced as he tried to maintain control of his car. Just as the other vehicle was about to collide with him, it swerved and passed by, disappearing into the night. John let out a sigh of relief, but his nerves remained on edge. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Minutes turned into hours as John continued down the seemingly endless road. The world outside his car felt surreal, as if he had entered a different dimension. He began to see fleeting shapes in the shadows, figures standing by the roadside, their eyes reflecting the dim light of his headlights. Unable to shake the eerie sensation, he pulled over at a restaurant. He got out of his car, the cold night air sending a chill through his bones. He checked his phone, but there was no signal, leaving him completely isolated. As he walked toward the rest area's vending machines, he heard faint whispers in the darkness. He couldn't make out the words, but they seemed to come from all directions. Panic gripped him, and he rushed back to his car, locking the doors. Back on the road, John's fear intensified with each passing mile. He saw more shadowy figures on the roadside, their numbers growing. Some stood still, while others seemed to beckon him with ghostly gestures. He reached a bridge that spanned a churning river below. As he crossed, he saw a woman standing on the edge, her long hair billowing in the wind. She stared at him with hollow eyes, her expression one of sorrow and despair. John sped past, not daring to look back. The road became a maze of twisting turns, leading him deeper into the heart of darkness. His headlights flickered, and his car's engine sputtered ominously. Panic set in as he realized he was running out of gas, and there was no sign of a gas station in sight. With his car coasting to a stop, John was left in pitch darkness. He could hear the whispers again, louder this time, as if the shadows were closing in on him. Desperation forced him to leave the car and start walking. He stumbled through the night, the figures now surrounding him. Their whispers grew louder, their voices a cacophony of unintelligible words. He felt their icy fingers brush against his skin, sending shivers down his spine. Hours turned into an eternity as John wandered deeper into the abyss. He began to lose track of time and reality, his mind unraveling. Just as he was about to succumb to madness, he saw a faint glimmer of light in the distance. With every ounce of strength left in him, John stumbled toward the light, his heart pounding. As he approached, he realized it was the headlights of a police car. The officer inside looked at him with concern, asking if he was all right. Tears streamed down John's face as he tried to explain the nightmarish journey he had endured. The officer listened, his expression growing grimmer with each word. He told John that he was not the first to experience such horrors on this road. They called it the Midnight Highway, a place where the darkness held sway, and the lost souls of the night beckoned to those who dared to drive its haunted path. John's story would become another chapter in the chilling legend of the Midnight Highway, a road best avoided when the clock strikes midnight.